So the war between Israel and Palestine intensifies. Who actually bombed the Gazan hospital? Our Prime Minister has a unique take on the situation, but not so unique from Joe Biden. Actually, pretty dumb. And then Pakistan also tries to get in on the action by saying some ridiculous things. Let's find out more. Welcome, welcome. This is the Nikhil Chaudhari Show. So before we get into who actually bombed the hospital, this whole situation with Israel and Palestine, specifically Gaza, reminds me of something Hillary Clinton said back when she was the Foreign Affairs Minister or the Secretary of State of US. She was basically on a trip to Pakistan and she was talking to the Pakistan Foreign Affairs Minister, and she said this, and I don't know the exact quote, but she said something along the lines of, when you have snakes in your own backyard, you cannot expect them to only bite your neighbors. Sooner or later, they are going to bite you too. And this whole situation in Gaza is basically that. So here's what I mean by that. So in 2006, Hamas was actually elected in Gaza. They got 44% of the vote. The other party, which is Fatah, which is also similar or has similar ideology to Hamas, actually got the 42% of the vote. Now both of these parties, even though they are kind of opposition to each other, including Islamic Jihad, by the way, which we'll talk about it later, they actually have same ideology in sense that all of them want the destruction of Israel and killing all the Jews or as much Jews as possible. Now since 2006, there has not been a single election held in Gaza. So Hamas has been in power for over 15 years and there has been no uprising by the people there. There has been no uprising even when the Arab Spring was going on. There was no opposition to the party. They have overwhelming support even though the media will tell you that they don't have it. Because how do you stay in power if you don't have the support of the public? So population of Gaza is 2 million and Hamas militants are over 5,000. Now imagine if you don't have support in Gaza, how can you rule the Gaza? How can you rule those 2 million people for over 15 years? That's not possible. That must mean they must have some level of support or another. Like some of the people might agree with them fully, some of the people might not. Some of the people might agree to them 50% or 60% or 80%, but there is no doubt is that they have enough support to make sure they stay in power for all these years. Now here's how that point actually connects to the recent bombing of the hospital in Gaza. Now you know that 2 days back the hospital was bombed and there were multiple reports that Israeli forces, the IDF, were behind it. And there were no really records of it, or there was no really evidence of it, but it was more like the Instagram and the Facebook and the Twitter and everything was filled with, okay, Israel has done this, Israel has done that, without any evidence whatsoever. That's why I always say evidence before emotions. My point is that there were unverifiable reports of IDF actually bombing that hospital. Now as it turns out, as of yesterday, we have new reports that actually it was not IDF. It was not even a bomb, but it was the rockets that Gazans, or that not Gazans, but Hamas were firing. But then new reports came out yesterday that that wasn't even a bomb, and that was not actually hit the hospital itself, but the parking lot. And that was not a bomb, that was actually a rocket. And then people are saying, and they're the other side actually, the Israelis or the IDF, they were saying that Hamas actually were behind it. But then we have a new report from Washington General, which says that Islamic Jihad, which is the opposition group to Hamas in Gaza, has actually done the deed. They're actually the ones who bombed the hospital. Not the hospital actually, they actually missed it. And they actually got the parking lot. And there were reports that over 500 people were killed in the first day, which was 2 days back. But then there was no evidence of any of those people who were dead. And then we actually got some photos that shows that actually the parking lot was bombed and not the hospital. But all the leftist media, all the liberal media actually went ahead with it. They were spamming Twitter. They were spamming all the people who were in support of Israel that, okay, here's your country. Here's who you are supporting. These people have bombed hospital. Now, there's a broader point to it as well, because it's a bit believable, because what Hamas usually does is that they actually make sure their HQs, where they stash their weapons, they make sure that is under the hospitals or under the schools or near mosques or churches. There are no churches in Gaza, by the way, but the mosque and the churches and everything. And they actually make sure that their weapon stash, their HQ, wherever they lead their operations, is actually under that or near that. So whenever IDF actually tries to attack those posts, obviously that means some of the people or the hospitals or the schools are going to get hit. And one more thing to that is that actually Israel makes sure that they give warnings to the buildings they are going to bomb. And still Hamas makes sure that their own citizens, the people who elected them to protect them, they make sure that they don't leave those areas to make sure that IDF actually bombs them, and then they can use that to put out the narrative that okay, Israel is evil, Israel is that, and Israel is this. But in reality, they are actually the ones who are making sure that their own citizens stay dead or their own citizens get killed. So here's my point with all of this is that okay, yesterday or the day of the attack, we actually learned that it was Israel. We had few footages, but none of it was verifiable. Then yesterday, we learned that okay, it was Hamas behind it. And then we have some footages of the rockets who are actually getting fired from Gaza to Gaza. And just to be clear, Israel doesn't have any rocket. They actually just bomb the areas they want to bomb. They don't use rockets. Rockets are explicitly used by the groups in Gaza, including Hamas and the others. And now there are reports today that Islamic Jihad was behind it. So my broader point here is that every single day in this conflict, you have heard stories from left, you have heard stories from right, you have heard stories from central, and everyone is saying different things because what happens is that people get caught up into emotions. And when they get caught up into emotions, they don't see objectivity. They just, like, whenever you see something on Twitter, you're just going to repost it without even verifying it first. And that's what has happened, is that every side is trying to do their PR on social media and others, trying to gain sympathy for their side. So here's what I will tell you is that don't fall for any of it. Whenever you get some information, verify it yourself, or maybe just hold on for a day or two till more information comes out and then make your opinion. Instead of just rallying behind the people who are telling these opinions on internet. Obviously, they are doing it for views. They're doing it to get some likes, to get some reposts, to get some retweets if you're on Twitter. And that's their purpose. So don't fall for that. Actually wait. Actually make sure that you have enough information to make a judgment, to make an opinion, and then you can carry forward. But just don't fall for it because that's what they want. So after the bombing, our Prime Minister actually got in on the situation, and what he said was really smart. Let's take a look. So that's what he said on Twitter, and I quote, "Deeply shocked at the tragic loss of lives at the Al-Ahil hospital in Gaza. Our heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims and prayers for the speedy recovery of those injured. Civilian casualties in ongoing conflict are a matter of serious and continuing concern. Those involved should be," and here's the line where it makes sense. And here's the line where I would say he's playing really smart. And last line he says is that those involved should be held responsible. And that was 2 days back. And that was exactly the time when all the media, all the leftist media, all the leftist and liberal media were pushing that it was actually Israel who did it. And our Prime Minister was very smart. So he actually held his nerve. He actually let the information come out. And now what he says is actually very neutral, is that whoever did this should be held responsible. And now 2 days back, it was like Israel did it. Now it was like Hamas did it. And today we are finding out maybe Islamic Jihad is behind it. This is smart because it's not assigning guilt to someone who has not been proven of committing the actual crime. So on the contrary of what Narendra Modi said, which was really smart, here's what Joe Biden said. And I quote, "The vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas," which is true. Now what he says next is the problem. He says that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people, which is very stupid considering over 44% of them voted for Hamas back in 2006. And then you might think, okay, that's not the majority, as some people will say. But then the other party, Fatah, actually got the 42% of the vote. And Fatah is as bad as Hamas. It's just they are not that competent as Hamas. But they are all bad and they have support in Palestine, or at least in Gaza. So don't fall into the trap where the Palestinian people or the Gazans does not support Hamas or does not have sympathies to their cause. They do have it. That's why they stayed in power for over 15 years. Now, this is a terrible situation, a tragic situation for all the parties involved, whether it's Israel, whether it's Palestine, or Gazans themselves. But whenever there is tragedy, there are always people trying to cash in on that tragedy. And one of those people or states is Pakistan. And they are trying to cash in on it, and they are trying to gain social credibility in the Arab or Muslim world. Now, here's what Business Today reported yesterday. Amid Israel's ongoing war against Hamas, former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law, Captain Safdar, has asked the people in the country to get ready for the jihad and back the Muslims in Palestine. He also said that Pakistan's nuclear weapon was not only for Pakistan but all the Muslims in the world. Now, you might say that Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law and Nawaz Sharif himself has no relevance to the Pakistan's current politics or their parliament. What Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law said is after one of the members of the opposition in the Pakistan's parliament actually called for their current prime minister to actually bomb Israel if they don't stop the war in Gaza. Now, that is absolutely absurd coming from a state which cannot even protect their own borders. Taliban has been toying with them for years. They have a problem with their north border. They have a problem with us. They have some problems with China, but they are basically a baby of China, so they will just play along with what they say. Their country is in ruins, their economy is on the brink of collapse, and they are trying to help Palestine. Now, this is why Pakistan is doing these things. They want attention. They are desperate for attention. No one gives it to them, not even the Arab world, not even the Muslim world. No Muslim country actually supports them entirely. They just want attention. That's why they are saying this incredible shit to get some attention from the Arab world so they can have a bit of respect. Listen, you don't try to clean up other people's shit when your own house is full of shit. Get it over it, sort your own shit out, and then try to help other people.